Okay, so welcome to the Easel Paintings Open Day. I'm Aviva Bernstock. I'm a professor in the Conservation Department, and together with Pippa Bausch, who's a member of staff in the department, we're going to introduce you to some of the aspects of the course, the 3-year course in easel painting conservation at the Courtauld. And Taki Yukihara, who's in the Student and Academic Services, will come in at the end. He's here to answer questions about the application process. So let's make a start. Next slide, please. So first of all, the Department of Easel Paintings Conservation, which you can see a slide of here, you can see students working away in the department, is one of the practical conservation parts of the practical conservation course in the Conservation Department. Next slide, please. We're currently at Vernon Square, which is in King's Cross, in this building, which looks very nice in our spring photograph. And in fact, we're going to be moving back to Somerset House, and I'll show you some slides of what that's going to look like at the end of this academic year. So if you apply for the course in this next year, you'd be located back, probably, almost certainly, back at Somerset House. So next slide. So first of all, a bit about the Courtauld. Historically, the department was founded in 1932 or 1934 when it was first set up. And it was then the technology department. So there's a long history of this department doing technical studies. So looking at paintings in ways, examining them, using the application of scientific techniques to find out about the materials and techniques and physical history of paintings, their condition, what's happened to them over the passage of time. And later on in the 1970s, the course in easel painting conservation was set up. It's postgraduate and specializes in easel paintings right from the very beginning. And in 1985, the wall paintings conservation department was set up quite separately, and now they're amalgamated into one department. So next slide. So we're going to especially talk about the practical conservation programs, which are both 3 years master's course starting next year. There is a MA in easel painting conservation, quite separately an MA in the wall painting conservation. And we are in one department. There will be some crossover, but actually the kind of lifestyle and the things that we do, if you want to be a professional easel painting conservator, are different to the life of a wall painting conservator, although obviously artists who make easel paintings might also make wall paintings. So there is a crossover in terms of materials and techniques. The kind of working life of those conservators will be different. So it's really important when you apply for a course that you apply for something you think is going to suit you, either working on works of art that are movable, that can be in museums or in private collections, for example, or actually working on site in different places in the world. Next slide, please. So we're going to talk specifically about the conservation of easel paintings, and it is a 3-year full-time professional education in conservation. So on completion of the course, you should be prepared to work pretty much unsupervised or in a museum anywhere in the world or in the private sector. Move to the next slide, please. So here, as promised, is a preview of how we're going to be located in our resources at Somerset House. So back against Somerset House in the West Wing. And there are a couple of details here of the studios that have been newly refurbished, and they're going to be quite beautiful and magnificent, if I may say so, and will house our easel painting and wall painting conservation course. So there will be some crossover between the two courses. We will get to meet each other, but they're housed in this in the West Wing of Somerset House, in this majestic and wonderful chambers building. Next slide, please. So in advance of that, and in fact, in a couple of weeks' time, the Courthole Gallery is going to reopen. We're all really excited about that. In fact, the Conservation Department is right next to the gallery. So we've got the fantastic situation of being able to look at gallery pictures firsthand, have them in the studio to view them. There is, of course, the Courthole Gallery collections is wonderful. There's Samuel Courtauld's collections of paintings, Impressions paintings, and then Xylan and other collections of old master paintings. Just a few examples here, and I've just given you a sneak preview here of the bar at the Folies Bergère being rehung in the new gallery space. So the 19th of November is D-Day for gallery opening, and that's really exciting. A lot of teaching that goes on in the Courtauld Gallery, and also study of the works, which I'll talk about in a minute. Next slide, please. So specifically the 3-year full-time Masters in the Conservation of Easel Painting includes looking, it's an intellectual as well as a practical course. So it combines many elements that are very important if you want to work globally in places where they've got different sorts of artwork and different approaches to preserving and displaying them. So it's really important that we encompass all these different viewpoints. So first of all, you look at the principles and theory of conservation. We look at the historical aspects of the materials and techniques that are used to make works of art. And we use technical study, so we can do different sorts of analytical techniques. We can do imaging techniques using X-rays and infrared imaging. And students do that firsthand, or learn how to do that firsthand very early on in the course. There's a big element of practical, which makes us special, I think. The practical conservation, studio practice and research are elements that are pretty much unique to our course, that it focused right from the start on easel paintings and opportunity to work from start to finish on particular painting projects. So this talk will give an overview of the course, then special elements of the course, which Pippa will talk about. And at the end, I hope there's plenty of time for you to ask questions, and we strongly encourage you to do that, which, you know, it's very important that you just ask whatever you like in advance of applying for the course, or anything at all, really, just ask away. So next slide, please. So studio practice, working on paintings, is an enormous part of the course. And although there's a little thingy in front of me, oh, I can practically see it. So the first part, in the first year of the course, you spend about half the time working on paintings in the studio, and it increases. In the second year of the course, about 80% of your time. And in the third year, 2/3 of the time working on practical painting conservation projects and a research project, which takes up 1 term of the final year of the course. And that's an incredibly important part, and it allows students to focus on something that interests them during the course. And it's quite a small field, so there's a lot of opportunity to do original research, which contributes widely to the field, the professional field at large. And we often publish the work that students do, or they publish it for themselves, and that can be quite an important part of somebody's research career, and, you know, help them towards an interesting career in general. So we look at applying different sorts of scientific knowledge and methods to what we do. We do technical and historical study of paintings as part of the diagnostics, you know, should we present this age work of art. We encourage people to think independently and read widely, and to discuss decision-making and the ethical considerations about conservation, and to manage their projects themselves. So there's a great sort of sense of postgraduate independence that happens quite quickly and ramps up quite quickly on the course. Next slide, please. So documentation and technical study is a really, really important part of the course. Everyone does it for themselves right from the first year. And that will involve close looking at pictures and using different sorts of analytical techniques, and assessing and evaluating the results of the research towards making decisions about conservation. Just showing you some slides here of the kinds of studios that we have actually at Vernon Square and the microscope room. This, of course, will be different next year, even better next year. But we have pretty nice facilities now. It's a pity that we can't invite you in, but we hope that this is doing the best job that we can online. So next slide, please. So this is where Pippa's taking over from me.
That's right. Thanks, Aviva. This is where I'm stepping in. So I'm just going to talk a little bit about the first and second year and how we organise that. So in the first year, as we've already said, about half the students' time is in lectures or seminars or discussion groups, and about half of their time is in their studios. And so by the end of the first term, the first semester, the students will have their first painting to treat. But before they do that, we have a course which we call the replica course, which is how they spend their time when they're in the studio. And the lecture courses integrate very closely with this replica course. So we, as Aviva has already said, we're really fortunate in being able to work very closely with our Courtauld Gallery collection. And so we bring original artworks from that collection into our studios for 8 weeks, and the students work from them, looking very closely at them, considering all the technical study that's been done on them and any conservation reports that we have on them, and looking under the microscope, and then attempting their own reconstruction of a portion of each of the paintings we bring in. So this slide is showing you on the top left a 16th century Venetian painting on canvas and its copy. And on the right, you see one of our former students standing on the banks of the River Thames, making an impressionist sketch. And on the bottom left, you're seeing a reconstruction of an early 16th century painting from Antwerp, which we quite frequently bring into the studios for this purpose. So in conjunction with the studio work, the students have a course in a lecture course in materials and techniques, and Aviva introduces technical examination techniques, which is both a lecture course and a practical course. So the three of us work extremely closely together in the first 8 weeks of the students' time with us. And then here are some details. Just thought it would be fun to show. This was a painting from the Master of the Fog Pieta, dating from the early 14th century, that we studied last year, actually. And here are 2 of our students working in socially distanced fashion last year, carrying out the gesso and the underdrawing and the bowl, applying the clay bowl in order to apply the gilding to this to their replicas here. And this slide is to remind me to say that another really important aspect of the replica course is to recognize how paintings have changed over time. And here you see a detail of the original 14th century work, and on the right, one of our students, Lily, recreating the gilding, and see how shiny and mirror-like that brand new gilding is compared to the way that the original work has aged. So we discuss that, and we read about how materials age and look closely at the paintings. And this slide shows some of the kinds of technical study that we bring into our discussion and thinking around the paintings that we examine. So here is that same panel with its X-ray on the right. And the X-ray here is really important because it shows the wood grain very clearly. And it was very important in establishing where in a larger altarpiece this panel once sat. And then on the lower right, you see an infrared reflectogram. And on the lower left, you see a very zoomed up image of a cross-section taken from the blue drapery of this painting, which enables us to identify that in this case, quite unusually actually, this artist used a mixture of ultramarine and azurite in that blue drapery. And then, as I said, by the end of their first semester, the first years will have had their first paintings in the studio. And now I'm going to move on to the second year, where they continue their studio practice. And in the second year, they spend nearly all of their time in the studios, 4 days out of 5 each week. And here's a shot of our current second years who are just through that door behind me, working on these paintings, which are portraits from Audley End House. So they belong to English, they're in the care of English Heritage. And here's one of our students. And at the moment, they're involved in removing the varnish layers and old retouchings from these paintings. And if you can see my cursor, this detail shows a little cleaning test, removing the yellowed varnish from this work that Kyoko here is working on. Other aspects that we of treatment that we, as well as varnish removal, which I think is very well known about in the general public, but we also do structural work. So we also work on the canvases and the panels and other materials that the paintings are painted on. And here's a shot in our structural studio here at Vernon Square. And here's another detail of the kind of damages that might lead us to carry out structural work on paintings. So here something has been pushed through this canvas painting, damaging it quite badly. And we will actually, the student that this has been given to is embarking on the mending of this tear. And ultimately, this painting might be lined by us. Another slide which shows that a workshop in progress. These are test paintings or fragments of painting that we use for testing. And this, in fact, in this case, this is a workshop on cleaning methods. And this is to remind me to say that our cohorts of students work very closely together and are quite often involved in group work. And this is where I am going to hand back to Aviva to talk about one of the aspects of the second year.
Okay, so the Courtauld is obviously it's a fantastic place, not only to study conservation, but also to study the history of art, which is very famous. And so it has a gallery, and it also comprises a big history of art faculty and student body. And for about 10 years now, exactly 10 years, we've had a fantastic arrangement whereby graduate art historians, either doing PhD or master's course at the Courtauld, collaborate with our second year students in the conservation of easel paintings to do what's called painting pairs. So they can work together, providing expertise from their own areas, so from conservation and technical studies, combined with historical framework research to investigate particular paintings that are being treated or studied in the studios, in the conservation studios. And it's called Painting Pairs, and it's open to all second year students on our course. The students pair up and they give 2 presentations in the research forum, the first of which, and we have actually got dates for them here on the screen, and you're welcome to come to these events, which will be partly online and partly in person, I think. I think they'll certainly be in person, but they'll be also online, I think, recorded. The first is 21st of January, in which the pairs, we're just about to, in fact, we're about to interview for the art historians who are in either curating or the history of art, and to pair up with our second year students. So in January the 21st, they'll give presentations where they introduce the questions that are related to their works, which could be any questions that take their interest, in which technical study and object-based close looking can inform some historical questions. And then their final presentations are in May, which present the results of their research. And it's very varied because the paintings that they're working on are quite varied, and the historical questions they address are very tailored to the interests of those students combined. And it's a great piece of teamwork. And the results are written up, often published, but excerpts and abstracts are published on the website under Painting Pairs on the Courtauld website, and there's a link here. So here are 2 examples of paintings that have been studied last year, and you can look on the website to see other summaries going back in time. So next slide. I think it's important to talk about research again. This is just a slide of Gabriella, one of our former students who went on to work in the National Gallery Scientific Department and also works as a private conservator as well, working on painting by Cézanne. In fact, she did a project looking at Cézanne's card players, and this also took her to the Metropolitan Museum, which is where you see her photographed here. So in the final year, students can engage in a project of their interest, and it might be focused on gallery pictures or pictures from other places, other small museums, from regional centres or private collections, or it might be a project related to the testing materials for their stability and use in conservation. I'm just thinking more broadly, or they might be a philosophical project about what patina is and what it really means in terms of historical practice. Or it might focus on something to do with the environmental control. So anything related to the area of study that we have can be developed and supported in this final year project. And that really forms a sort of key part of what we do in the final year. And it runs as a thread really through all our teaching. The idea that you question, you read, you question, you evaluate, and you think about how you might answer particular questions by doing research. Next slide, please. Students who produce projects are regularly invited to present their research at student conference, which combines collaboration between the different easel painting conservation courses at the University of Cambridge and University of Northumbria. This is just an advertisement from one of the previous ones. Sometimes they're online during COVID, but we hope that in future we can go back to in-person conferences, and that's rotated through the three organizations. So then 1 year it would be in Newcastle, one would be in Cambridge, and then 1 year would be at the Courtauld, hosting the Jerry Headley Student Conference. And so these conferences, at the conferences, the final year students present their work for their projects, and students from the other institutions, either on parallel courses, graduate courses, or interns, can also present their interesting work. And that's something that is also a great opportunity to learn how to present your research. So, this one. One of the parts of the course which is really exciting, because of course we don't just educate people to work in Britain, we aim to educate people from everywhere, and consider working in global arrangements wherever they happen to end up. So visiting and study trips is a really important part of the course, and this is open twice a year. So second and third year students get the opportunity to go to different places, different countries where conservation education or practice might vary, and we get to go on studio visits in different places and experience and listen to conservators who work in different ways or who are educated in different ways. And so this is just one example of the way that a painting is stretched in one of the visits we went on. And the next slide, I think, shows you a sort of mosaic of different sorts of experiences where we visited studios in places like Berlin, Munich, Madrid. These were the good old days before COVID, and I hope that they will return. I think this year we're going to go somewhere in the UK, which will be just as exciting, or even Scotland as well. So another part that's really important, of course, is the Courthole community, and there is a fantastic culture of social events and support from the different supporting organizations and individuals within the institution for welfare and well-being. And that's really important to us, and is an important part of that student experience that we offer. These are photos of we used to have biannual parties. We have a summer party and a Christmas party, and they're traditionally costume parties in which everyone can dress up on a theme. This is an example of one of the things. Another thing to remember, of course, and this I think places us in great stead compared with the other courses in Cambridge and in Newcastle, is that we are in London. And being in London is a wonderful thing because of the ease of visiting important places like the National Gallery and the Tate and other galleries in London, the access to libraries of all different sorts. And so that's an important part of what we do, encouraging people to look at and to appreciate and to engage with education in a wider way by looking at pictures and visiting libraries and other resources, which is all here in London. So, so this is the point at which we talk about the application process and what we're actually looking for in students when they apply. And at this point, Taka will also take over and talk about the timings that we are offering this year. So I don't know if you want to do that.
Oh,
great.
Hi there. My name is Takayuki Hara. I'm the admissions officer at the Courtauld. So I'm just going to explain a little bit about applications and entry requirements and the Courtauld scholarships as well. Unfortunately, our applications are not open yet. We are really hoping to have it open just for this event, but unfortunately we are still finalizing final bits, and we are hoping to open applications hopefully within the sort of 2 weeks time. Deadline for the application is 4th of January 2022. If you'd like to have a sort of email, and if you wanted to register your interest when applications are open, you can sign up for the newsletter, which is at the bottom of the course page for the MA Conservation and Easel Paintings course. Now you can see the link in the chat bit, if you actually scroll down to the bottom, you would actually see just a little tab saying sign up for the newsletter. As soon as the applications are open, we will actually send you an email. So when it comes to entry requirements, our successful applicants have typically achieved an upper second class, a bachelor degree in fine art, history of art, or natural science. This doesn't actually mean you can't apply if you actually studied a different subject. We welcome applications from any different academic backgrounds. If you are studying at the international institution, the upper second class is normally GPA 3.5. When it comes to English requirements, if your first language is not English, we require proof of English language test. We accept IELTS or Cambridge Advanced Test or Cambridge proficiency test. That's actually on the website. If you're not sure, please email me, and then I will actually guide you through. Because MA Conservation and Easel painting course is actually very small, we take normally we take about 5 students, well, 5 to 6 students per year. So it is important to have your English test as soon as possible, as early as possible. We recommend to have it submitted with your application. If it's not possible, we recommend to have it submitted before your interview, if you are invited to the interview. Finally, I'm just going to talk about Courtauld scholarships. So Courtauld scholarships are consisted of donations, and on average, it really depends, because it is actually consisted of a very small scholarships to big scholarships. And on average, we support students about £6,000 per year. And everybody can apply, regardless of your offer status, or if you're an international student or if you're a home student, it doesn't really matter. Anyone can actually apply for the Courtauld scholarships. We normally open applications in the new year, around probably mid to late February. Then deadline is going to be around March, probably mid-March. Your acceptance deadline would be 1st of April. So you will actually hear from us regarding your Courtauld scholarships before your acceptance and deadline. I think that is actually it from me. So I think I'm just gonna hand it back to Pippa and Aviva.
I'm waiting for questions now. I'm really hoping that there are questions. Please ask any questions you would like. We're really happy to answer them. And when they pop into the chat, I'll read them out and we'll answer them.
Do you accept deferrals? No, we don't. We don't.
You have to reapply.
You have to reapply. So for the last couple of years, in the past, you might have seen this on the website, that our interview process was an in-person process where each applicant was asked to spend an entire day with us. But last year we did this, we managed the interviews online, and the practical test, we altered it slightly to suit a postal practical test, and we're going to do that again this year. Now they're all coming in. What if my first language is not English, but achieved my BA in English speaking country? That's one for
that's for me. Sorry, just if you studied in majority English language, English speaking countries, you don't have to actually take a test. What you need to do is just submit your interim or final transcript with your application. then if you're still studying at that institution, we normally actually give you a conditional offer, the conditional being completing your degree. And your degree would actually verify your English language test as well.
Right. Okay, thank you, Taka.
So there's I can read out the next one. How much are students expected to know about painting technically before the course? Are students expected to be able to paint all sorts of subjects such as portraits, landscapes, etc.? No is the answer. You don't. I think showing an interest in technical study and having read something about what technical study is, say on the National Gallery technical bulletins, for example, which are free and online, is a great advantage. Knowing what you're letting yourself in for is necessity for us. We want people to apply who know that they want to be paintings conservators and have done whatever it takes to find out about what that really involves, whether it's visiting a studio or reading. As for painting, we do ask for a portfolio because it's useful for us to see that people can engage with materials, but they don't have to submit paintings at all, let alone landscapes or portraits. They could submit knitting or pottery or something that shows that they can use their hands. So I mean, it doesn't have to be knitting or pottery. I mean, it's nice if it's paintings. It's nice if it's paintings. I'm not saying you have to do knitting or pottery, but what I'm saying is that we aren't specific in what we ask for. We don't require any particular artistic talent, but an engagement with materials is what we're looking for. So you don't have to be a brilliant artist, but to show that you can try to do something, to paint, to draw, and certainly people who love paintings and that care about that they survive for the next generation. I think that's a motivation which is important to us, and it's really, you know, showing that you're committed to that. It's a 3-year course, which is a big commitment. You end up as a paintings conservator or somebody who studies painting, so demonstrating that that's a core interest of yours and that you understand that's what your life will be like means that you'll be committed to this course, and that stands you in good stead. So that's
and I think maybe I'll just add something about the practical test that's part of our interview process. So the portfolio combined with a practical test which tests manual dexterity and color matching. So we do have to see that there's some ability in manual dexterity, color matching, that kind of thing. So let's go back to the chat. Where are we next? I noticed you can't get MA student finance. How do students typically fund the 3 years? I think Taka might have something to say about that, but I might just say that no one fully funds their 3 years. That is the hard truth of it, and I'm not going to pretend otherwise. It's a real commitment, this course, because it's full-time. It's hard in term time anyway. It would be very difficult to also have a paid work, because it's a full-time course, so it's tough. But maybe Taka, I think Taka, you already did say what the average was.
Yeah, so the average is £6,000, but obviously our scholarships vary so much. So some person might actually get a little bit more than £6,000, but some people might actually get a little less than 6,000,
or nothing.
That is true. Although our scholarships are very generous, but it is very, very competitive, and you know, there's no harm in applying at all. But I always actually recommend students or applicants to have a backup plan. Just like look for like external funding as well as you know, Courtauld scholarships. I always sometimes actually get applicants that towards the end of summer saying like, I just don't have any plan at all financially. I don't want that to happen to anybody. So I always recommend to actually look for any external funding by just even Googling from now, I think. Just then do that. I think that is actually a good plan.
And we offer to 6 people, and then we have a waiting list, and it is very, very common to be offered a place from the waiting list. So that also holds, to have in the back of your mind, I'm on the waiting list. What will I do if I'm offered a place you know, sometime late in the summer? So that's just worth mentioning. Oh, there are lots of questions.
Yeah, there are lots of questions.
Let's see.
I was going to say,
so is there option for part-time study? No, I'm really sorry, there is not. This course, it really relies on a cohort of students spending all of their days in this integrated teaching. So at the moment we do not offer that. You won't see the 4 questions on the application form until the applications are open. What do you expect to see in portfolios? I think I've answered that. We're quite broad in what we hope to see, but some evidence of manual dexterity. We don't want big portfolios. It'll be electronically submitted, but maybe 5 pieces of work or so, really, but we're quite open to whatever you think you'd like us to see. Do you accept mature students who may not meet the exact academic requirements but have other education work experience? I think that the criteria that we ask for are already fairly broad, and I think we probably do need to stick to them, but we might case by case look at individual cases. But I think the criteria are fairly.
I think we ask for a first degree in
Yeah.
some kind of subject. It doesn't have to be in art history or fine art or any particular thing, but we definitely ask for a degree, and that's the bottom line. So people have to have a first degree, but beyond that, it's quite flexible.
Yeah.
And for us, the commitment to being a paintings conservator, an easel painting conservator, and knowledge of what that involves is very important, as we've already discussed. But yes, I would say that we don't take people without first degrees. As for the age, we absolutely don't discriminate between people. It's illegal to do that, and we wouldn't do that anyway.
No, but I mean, already our criteria are fairly broad, aren't they? How many people do we invite to interview? Alberto asks. We invite around 20 people for interview for 6 places. Victoria asks, once you've graduated with an MA, are you fully licensed practitioners? You're certainly qualified to practice as a conservator, and you will have a really excellent education for that. There is, in this country, an accreditation process which happens independently of our course and later in your career, which you can choose to do. So there isn't really an internationally recognized license for conservation, but our course is widely recognized, and courses like ours are widely recognized in the conservation world.
The one about foreign language, is there an opportunity to study a foreign language alongside the course? I would say if you want to do that privately, that's up to you, but it's a fairly committing course, so if you can fit it in and around what we ask you to do, then that's fine. It's a private thing done, but it's not part of our course offer. The next question was about what scientific techniques we're capable of. And do we partner with other institutions that conduct analysis the Courtauld doesn't have? Absolutely, yes. But we have a fantastic array of analytical resources now, thanks to a recent grant of several £million. So we have a really stunning range of analytical equipment now, including analytical microscopes, X-radiography, infrared reflectography, multispectral imaging, scanning, macro XRF. So all the most recent up-to-date techniques we actually have now, but we also collaborate with other institutions which have specialist expertise. And we've traditionally done that with all the institutions in the UK. So Cambridge, the National Gallery, the Tate, internationally with different places in Italy, in the US, and particularly in Amsterdam, we have very close collaborations where we have several students doing projects at the moment. So yes, to both of those things. Yeah, we're very blessed from that point of view. Manual dexterity?
Manual dexterity, well, I think I've covered it really. I mean, you know, in order to restore a painting, you would have to know yourself whether you're going to be able to do that. So I think you'd want to find out for yourself whether, you know, if you haven't got done any paintings, do one. You know, do a sketch, go outside, do something. You know, you'll need to know that in order to pursue this career. So I would recommend that. Portfolios will be digital. For painting pairs, well, the painting pairs process is not about the application process, but just to say that we always have a very strong cohort of applicants from the History of Art department, so we've never not been able to fill the places.
There's a huge number of applicants from the History of Art and curating, and from PhD students, so we you know, they compete for the opportunity to work with our students. There's never a shortage.
Career progression program, I would say that our students are exceptionally successful in getting good jobs when they graduate from this program. I mean, it really is incredible where they end up. So we are well placed in the programs in the world for this. However, it's you have to work at it. You're not going to just walk into a full-time job immediately, and our students do very well. And usually they have a very, very interesting few years with a sort of portfolio of different kinds of work, probably two different jobs on the go, maybe one self-employed, one employed, that kind of thing. So, our students are very successful. They go into private practice and work internationally in institutions and museums as well. Strengthening chemistry. We didn't actually touch on this.
No, we didn't.
But yes, I would say, for those of you who have last done chemistry at GCSE, and that seems a long time ago, and maybe you didn't even like it much, I would still encourage you then to, yes, review that chemistry, but also any offer holder, and perhaps also thinking the people on the waiting list will, the offer holders will be asked to complete a science course, a chemistry course online that we provide. So that will be something that we provide. And then applied science is integrated into all the other teaching that we do in principles and theory of conservation. So the basic science, this kind of science you might have done at school, we are going to ask everyone who, before they come, to complete an online course, which will include an assessment at the end of it in their own time, before they come.
So there was the next question is about a logistical question. Will the postal tests be an issue for international applications? So
it's not ideal, but it's possible. We did it last year. We posted materials out, and then then the applicants from overseas were required to post them back, package and post the completed tests back to us. And there was a cost implication of that, but it was a good deal less expensive than flying over here for a day of interviews. So we figured that's okay. But yes, there was a cost associated with posting back those tests to us in the time scale. But it worked perfectly well last year. No one had a problem. The portfolios will be digital. We will ask you to send something digitally, so you'll need good photographs of the artworks that you choose to show, and then there will be an opportunity in each interview to discuss the portfolios. So it also forms part of the interview. Another one about scholarships. The scholarships are not.
Are they
well,
based?
Tucker can explain.
No, so scholarships are not based on financial needs, mainly on academic merits. So, I mean, just the scholarship application form, you need to actually provide quite a lot of supporting documents. But we do actually look at your financial need as well, but mainly academic merits, I would say.
Okay. There's something, just while we've got Tucker, there's something about course fees. Apparently the website doesn't
have.
Yes, we haven't actually got the updated course fees just yet. We will actually update it very soon, once financial department has actually issued new the tuition fees, but it's going to be updated very soon.
But we're not expecting a huge change from last year, are we?
Well, I assume there will be a bit of an increase,
right?
But not a sort of huge increase, I would say.
Okay. Someone is asking about references.
Academic references.
We really ask people to provide at least one of their references should be academic. Examples of academic work, no, we're not including that this year. Someone asks, what type of exam is taking place after the interview? A written exam on art history? This is part of the interview process, I think you're asking about. There is a slide test, which is short. It's about 25 minutes, 20 minutes long, where we show a series of slides virtually via Zoom and ask you to write some observations that we'll tell you about on the day. So it's not theory or traditional art history. It's something a bit different. Let me see. This is an interesting one. Would this program mainly focus on traditional paintings? Will students be able to explore paintings on uncommon surface such as metal or glass? And do we cover modern and contemporary mixed media? That's a great question. The answer is that most of what we do is more traditional, but we certainly have works on metal. We have once or twice had works of art on glass, and we do we do consider modern and contemporary conservation of modern and contemporary works as part of our teaching. We talk about it and teach it in Principles and Theory, especially in the second year in Principles and Theory 2. We certainly do have 20th century paintings very frequently as part of the studio work. We don't have so many contemporary, really new paintings, partly because we can't take on really enormous paintings, so it kind of limits a bit what we do. And we do, I'm closely involved in sourcing paintings for students, and we need to take on paintings that students can realistically tackle fairly independently, and not just be told what to do, but actually develop their own treatment plan and really take decisions themselves. So I think if you've read a bit about modern and contemporary conservation of modern and contemporary works of art, it can be very challenging in some ways, and so we take on things that are appropriate for our students.
I would add that ours is one of the very few courses where students take on projects from start to finish, and I think one of my own experience in being a conservator is it's very difficult to take responsibility for something. That's the biggest challenge, is to decide for yourself how this work of art, which is aged, should be presented, or it might not be very aged, it might be modern, but you have to make the decision. The students are responsible. They don't just do a little bit of this and that on test painting, learn how to mend a tear on this and then move on, a bit of cleaning on that one. They actually have to take ownership for every aspect of the treatment, decision-making, documentation and treatment. Knowing when to stop, when it's finished, is also a skill that people need to learn. Sounds funny, but that really is it. So we really do focus on that. And we're one of the few courses where students might work on 3, 4, 5, 6 paintings during their time, 3 years, from start to finish. So yes, of course, we consult and we supervise and we discuss, but it is individual responsibility, which really makes you a professional, enables, I think, professional practice. That's what we think anyway. So that's how we do it. But there are a couple of, there are actually tuition fees have been put up here for people who want to see them, but also about contact hours and core hours. I would say this is a full-time course. It should be very clear that it's full-time and it will take up all your time. It's not possible really to work during term time in another job. It's very committing, both in terms of practice in the studios, but also the academic work that you need to do.
Yeah.
The core hours are around about 9 to 5 or 10 to 6. They are working days, but you may find yourself working quite hard outside those areas, those times too. It's not limited. You can't just switch off.
We do, rule of thumb, there's a bit of time which might not, someone's also asked about contact days and hours. I mean, there are many contact hours. I can't give an exact amount, partly because, but so currently the first years, for instance, have 3 days of solid contact hours, 3 days in the studio where they more or less got continuous supervision, and then they've got another day and a half of lectures. So there's only half a day that isn't really contact time in the first year, so it's difficult to sort of say exactly. Supervision is a bit less full on for the second and third years, so there's someone on site, but they won't be with you every moment of the day. So it depends really. I'm just aware there are so many questions. Let's just
there's
preventive conservation.
Yeah,
someone is asking, will there be a course on preventive conservation? Yes, absolutely. That forms an important part of our Principles and Theory teaching in both the first and second year. And in the second year, students actually carry out an environmental survey and present on it. And in the first year, there are little mini presentations around that. So it's a very important strand of our teaching. Have most students found career relevant to the course? Yes, this course doesn't really qualify you for any other kind of work. So some students have chosen not to continue in conservation, but nearly everyone does immediately, straight after the course. But it's not a course to take if you're not going to pursue it as a career.
But to add to that, there are quite a few people who've become conservation scientists, and some students who've gone on to do PhDs in technical art history or art history, or even in some scientific development. So there are other career paths that can follow on, but the predominant career path is practical conservation. I think that's true to say. And I think relatively few people drop out and do something else. There's also arts management. Some people go into arts management or conservation management or preventive conservation. They work in heritage organizations at managerial level. So there are sort of slightly broader career paths, but generally speaking, I would say that they are practical conservators at the end of the course.
I'm going to actually skip over questions about the application form and things itself, because I do think the information's on the website, but you can always contact us again if you're still unsure. So I'm just going to try and concentrate on the things that aren't so easy to answer from the website. Someone has asked whether ancient languages would be advantageous. I mean, not especially. It's not something that would, if you're asking whether it would enhance your application, not really, but of course any language is useful for research.
Yeah.
So
if you're interested in that area of research, it might be useful later on, but it wouldn't advantage you at the first stage of the process.
Yeah. Someone is asking if it's okay to apply when you haven't finished your coursework in your previous degree. Yes, absolutely.
Yes,
we expect that people will be applying while they're finishing their degree, and some apply a few years later, or 1 year later. It's fine either way. What is meant by technical and historical study of painting? Would this be like an art history degree looking at historiography of art and art theory?
Well, I think to address the first question, it really involves close looking and material study. So looking at the actual object physically. So it could mean looking at how a picture is made and what it's made of, and about its physical history. So how it started out, how it's changed, what's happened to it since it was made. And the context around that would be the history of art, which also plays an important part in how we consider something, what its original function was, why it was made, by whom it was made sometimes, under what circumstances it was made, how it's changed function over time. All of these things play in. Some of these are historical things, but I would say technical art history is specific to close looking and engagement with materials, as a short answer. If you want to find out more about that, you'd look at a National Gallery technical bulletin, for example, free and online. I keep advertising it. I used to work at the National Gallery. But it's an opportunity to see what technical art history could be. So it's a collaboration between maybe curators and historians, scientists, and people who restore pictures, conservators, toward understanding works of art and their history by close looking and maybe analysis.
Yeah. Someone has asked whether evidence of work experience is required. No, it is not required. We do recognise that it would be very difficult. It is difficult to get work experience in conservation before you train. However, if you've had the opportunity to see conservation firsthand, then that's wonderful, of course. So not required, though. The slide test is timed, and yes, absolutely. If anyone requires special conditions, alternative arrangements, then tell us about your needs and we'll accommodate. Will we have access to the recording? Oh yes, this recording will be made available on the website. How do students support themselves during term time in such a demanding course? I'm not sure exactly what aspects. If you mean financially, then it's not easy. But some students do manage to have jobs in term time at the weekends, and certainly in the holidays, it's more possible to earn money. So that's how they manage it. And in terms of sort of well-being or issues, I think we have a good support network. We're a small department, so we support each other, and students build up very close relationships with the people in the cohort. What else?
About specialisation. There's one about specialisation.
I didn't see that, Viva. Maybe. Oh yes, there.
how do students specialize and what does that look like? Do some specialize in cleaning and others repairing damage, for example? No, we provide a comprehensive as we can education in the different elements of easel painting conservation. Not everyone, it's a good point, because not everyone does every aspect. So not everyone might do structural treatment of a painting on panel, for example, but there'll be, because there's a cohort of 15, 18 students at one time, you're definitely going to, on this course, see all the different aspects of conservation practice.
Yeah.
And intervention and preventive conservation too. So we provide a comprehensive, they don't specialize at all. In fact, we do aim to prepare people for work in any aspect of easel painting conservation.
Yes, and we work very hard to allocate paintings that give people a spread of experience in terms of the kind of conservation and the kind of painting in front of them. But however, you know, if students have a particular interest, we try really hard to accommodate that at some point in the 3 years. And there's also an opportunity with the research project to follow your sort of passion and specialize in something there. But Aviva's absolutely right.
Yeah, this relates actually to the last question. It looks like it's the last question. Will there be work study opportunities or working off campus available for international students? I think for every student, there's an opportunity to do a project internationally. Usually we have that.
Hang on a minute. I think this person's asking whether they can access the course remotely.
No, is that what it means?
Right? Will there be, let me read it out. Will there be work study opportunities or working off campus available for international students? I think you might be asking if you can attend the course without being physically here, in which case, if that's true, then no, you can't do that, because we work very closely with the
I took that as a different, to mean something different, that is there a chance to meet with other students internationally and do some kind of work with them? And sometimes doing I would answer that as if you do your final year project in somewhere in collaboration with another organization internationally, that's certainly possible. If we can facilitate and support that, that's a possibility, but maybe that's not what
there's a clarification.
Oh, here we are. I meant if the visa allow the student work.
Oh, so it's for me. Yeah, so international students can work 20 hours per week on a student visa. Hopefully that's yeah.
I'm sorry, that was clear. I should have understood that. For the replica, there's a question about the replica course. For the replica course, will students start from making colours and preparing canvas? Yes. So on the replica course, we do do quite a lot of very traditional. We follow the traditions. So we look very closely at the painting we're trying to replicate, and we try to follow the same process. Now, there are some corners cut. We don't, you know, we use modern materials in some cases, but really we do spend a full 8 weeks looking very closely at 4 paintings: early Italian, early 16th century Northern, 16th century Venetian on canvas, an Impressionist painting, and then also sometimes we'll do a more modern painting. So students have done made a little Rothko replica as well. So we do all, yeah, we do. Now there are a few more in.
Is there some sort of work placement during the course? Is one question.
Oh yes, and I think that might be our last one that we have time to answer. Actually, it's been fantastic. So many questions.
Yeah.
There isn't a work placement as part of the course, no. But what we do is we hear of opportunities for student works, for work experience during the summer in particular, which has a long break of 3 months. And we forward them on to the students, and we certainly facilitate applications for those. And we have good connections with people, so we hear about work. And our students also independently write to different studios that they're interested in, both in the UK and much more widely. So there is an internship is not part of our course. It's not a requirement, nor is it something we organise for our students. But all of our students do find work experience in the summer holiday in particular. So they do that, and often they'll earn money by doing that. I think that's about it. I really apologise if we've missed any questions. In the chat, you've got the email for PG admissions, which will take you through to Tucker. And if you want to email, if you have any further questions for Aviva or I, that's, we're happy to receive those as well.
Yeah.
So thank you so much. That was really, really full on and lots of questions, which is really nice to see. And if you want to watch again, you'll be able to in a few days when this is put up on the website.
Thank you.